Well, hello and welcome along to episode number 1 of Not Another Sports Pod. Listen, first of all, Ollie, I think we've got to welcome the fans that have made it across from our Wilson and Windsor Libertadores and Sudamericana pods, because they're the law fans. This is going to hopefully be a more consistent macro view on the sporting world, whereas the Libertadores podcast, obviously, which we will keep rumbling on, I think in the background, was a bit more of a niche specialist subject. So Wilson, yeah, what can you say? Hello, mate. Not another sports pod. The clues in the title.
Middle-aged men talking sports, thinking that our viewpoint needs to be flung out there. I think that's what the world needs. It's what the world's been waiting for, clamoring for. Finally, two middle-aged white men just having a natter about everything in the world of sports. I mean, at least we have the credentials that we do work in the industry a little. We're on top of a few things. There might be a bit of inside knowledge. Might even be some podcasts from various locations around the globe, as we've done previously. It's a bit of authenticity to it. Unfortunately, for the first one, though, I'm doing this from my new kitchen. So it's not quite that slick, smart sports journalist. Although I'm a big fan, Dave. I've just noticed behind you, you are bringing out a bit of the brickwork behind you.
Brickwork's coming in. You've got the plant, the racket, which could be signed by Roger Federer. We'll never know. It's all there. But yeah, I completely agree. It's about clogging the market, and the pod game. I mean, what goes up must keep going up, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
So like the podcast industry as a whole, like it surely must just keep going up and up and up forever.
The sky's the limit, and then there's space which goes for eternity. So we're going until eternity with this thing. That's right. Love until it. The wheels fall off.
Ollie Wilson, it's June the 17th, 2024. If it is coming home, it didn't really feel like it last night.
For 30 minutes, it really felt like it could be coming home. I mean, England kicked off against Serbia to start their Euro 2024 campaign last night. I think everybody in the country had this like idyllic Sunday of beautiful weather, couple of games to get you warmed up for the evening encounter against Serbia, and then you go into this and throughout the day. I mean, my dad sent me a link to World's in Motion. Love's Got the World in Motion by New Order, which was the England Italia 90 song, I believe. And he said, I'm finally all in. I'm going full patriotic. I'm in on this. And that's the kind of thing that I think happened to a lot of people during the day. And then England kicked off. Southgate went with pretty much the expected lineup that everybody thought. Some wondered if John Stones perhaps wouldn't play, because he's not played a full game of football for so long. Everything else was as we thought it would be. And it looked fantastic for half an hour. Absolutely dominated the game. Jude Bellingham running the show completely. I know we've had discussions in the past about Bellingham and Foden and which one you play in that role. And I've got to say, in tournament football, just the imposing physicality and presence that Bellingham has, I definitely feel will work at this sort of level in international football, of running a game, particularly against a side like Serbia that really wanted to be bullish and to slow down any momentum that England would garner for themselves, and finicky fouls, etc. And then it was exactly what you get from England, which your hopes go sky high for half an hour, and then the rest of the game you're clutching onto the side of the sofa.
Yeah, Ollie, I just want to quickly give a shout out to your dad in the midst of all this, because Ollie Wilson's dad is the kind of man that at 1 a.m. UK time will watch Ollie commentate on Deportivo Garcilaso against like a random Venezuelan side. So just shout out, the day after Father's Day, let's give a shout out to Wilson Senior. As for England and the football, look, I think what's so frustrating about this England side, and yeah, for half an hour it was nice. He popped the ball around, and as you say, it was impressive. I said this to you, I think I said this to you before, but that front six, Ollie, is so, the potential of that front six is so awesome that I think that's where the bar gets set. That's where the expectation gets set. I mean, Harry Kane, best player in Germany last year. Phil Foden, best player in England last year. Jude Bellingham, the best or the joint best with Vinicius Junior, best player in Spain last year. Saka, quality player. Declan Rice, best central midfielder in the Premier League last year. Trent Alexander-Arnold, immensely talented. That front six is, in my opinion, on paper, almost as good as the golden generation. And I think that's what has raised this. I mean, there's always massive expectation with England, clearly. But the first time, I think, in quite a long time, you look at that England side, you look at that starting 11 and think, we can outscore almost everyone. You can pick apart defensive holes, of course, but we should be able to outscore almost anyone in this tournament. And that's the frustration for me. Look, we won the game, beaten Serbia, but I don't know. I thought that the last half hour was a bit worrying.
It's a comfortable 2-0 win if it isn't a phenomenal save to deny Harry Kane. I mean, Mowbray and was it Jermaine Jenas on commentary for the BBC? I think it was Jenas. I think it was Mowbray and Jenas. No, it was Shearer. It was Mowbray and Shearer, wasn't it? Both missed the fact that the keeper got a touch because it's such a lightning quick header and the reaction save. And I think if it's 2-0, most people are changing their narrative about this game and they're not thinking, oh, we clung on. It's, no, we did the beautiful football for half an hour and then we did the nitty-gritty that you need in tournament football, and this shows that we can do both and score when the chips are down and necessarily those sorts of moments and still find a way to get goals because Kane is so good. I think we still have the problem, the wonderfully English problem of we've got so many great attacking options and we really do have a litany of like number 10s in English football right now. And, you know, Harry Kane can drop deep and kind of play that role as he used to do at Tottenham anyway. Didn't have to do that as much at Bayern Munich this year. Could just be further up the field and be a finisher at the end of the day. But we're still fitting round pegs, square holes as well. You know, Foden drifts inside all the time. And it's insane to think that you can't have a team without Bellingham and Foden in, because really they're both two of the best players in the world last season, without a doubt. And I just don't think Foden's great in that wide position. It forces Trippier to push on too far to support the attacks, to be the actual wide threat, while it then gets just a bit congested in the centre. And it's always been the problem with England of having an overly congested central part of the field and space on the right and relatively nothing on the left. I mean, hopefully Luke Shaw's back so we have an actual naturally wide left-footed player in that position. No discredit to Trippier. I actually really like Kieran Trippier. I always thought he's been a decent player. But I think you've got to find a formation, if you want to have Bellingham and Foden both in your starting 11, that puts them, say, just off a Harry Kane, either side of him, in a triangle as a front three maybe. And then you play three at the back with two proper wide players in Saka and maybe Luke Shaw as almost wing-backs, which Saka, that's not going to play into his defensive responsibilities, but with three centre-backs in there, that should be enough that then a Luke Shaw can get back, one centre-back shifts over slightly, maybe Kyle Walker on the right side of the back three, and if in panic mode, if Saka's too high up the pitch, you have a back four. But I didn't enjoy seeing what I saw from Phil Foden and how it clogged up the central part of the field. And maybe I'll be wrong and I'll be proved wrong. And it's nothing to do with Foden. As I say, he's a wonderful player. But at the moment, I think Bellingham proved last night he is the leader of this side, both as a face and as the presence on the football field. I mean, he looked like Zidane. It reminded me so much of the way Zidane would carry himself. You can't knock him off the ball, and yet people are still knocking him all over the place, and he's gliding and flowing. It is a joy to watch that good and English talent play. And I mean,
he definitely relishes the physical stuff as well, Ollie. There's a point where he just leaves the elbow in for absolutely no reason whatsoever because he's, you know, however tall he is and wide he is, and he can fancy it, not to mention, of course, his ability. I think in international tournaments as well, you extract so many narratives from one game of football. Yes, you do this in league football as well, but somehow opinions, if you're watching the Premier League, you'll maybe, you know, base them off, you know, a month or 10 games or something like that. But in international football, in international tournaments, you tend to, because there's so much coverage on this one tournament, you know, every 90 minutes is micro-analysed to the nth degree. I mean, if you just watched that and hadn't watched any football before, you'd be like, Phil Foden, what? Like, okay, he's kind of good, I suppose, ish. But obviously, because you're just trying to analyse too much. But I think the Foden off the left thing, it's the fact that we don't have an overlapping fullback on the left is a big problem because that just makes Foden look makes it all so much narrower. Ollie, just peeling away from England slightly, I just want to make the point that I'm going to make a prediction, Ollie. This is the last international tournament that will ever be played in just one country. Because let's just look at the trajectory. The 2026 World Cup is US, Canada, and Mexico. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm talking off the top of my head, right? Yep. 2028 Euros is like UK, Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland are hosting some games as well. 2030 World Cup, which is, of course, the centenary, is, I think it's Portugal, Spain, Morocco, and then there's some kind of vague commitment to play games in Latin America.
Yeah, I think they want to have at least one in Uruguay or something like that because it hosted maybe the opening game of the competition, which is insane.
Ollie, the first game in the final must be played in Uruguay.
Yeah, and so let's have a World Cup in South America. Let's have Argentina and Uruguay. Let's not have bouncing around continents.
But Ollie, just to conclude that, 2032 is Italy and Turkey. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't see any geographical or geopolitical reason why those two would both be hosting the tournament. So I think that the 2024 Euros in Germany will be the last ever international tournament held solely in one country.
And it's an absolute shame, because one of the things that's come out from supporters in the last week or so has been, isn't it great to be in a country where like Euros fever is across the country? And having been to footballing spectacles across the world, I've been very lucky to go to World Cups, to European Championships, and it was slightly different, I think, with the Belgium and Netherlands, because they're two smaller nations so close to each other, so you can do a joint tournament and it feels like it's still expanding across kind of one Germany, if you will, and the fever kind of grabs it. I thought the last Euros, you didn't have Euros fever, except for the fact that England were doing well in the UK. You weren't like, oh yeah, you wouldn't feel that up north when you go up to Sheffield or anything like that as much as when you were obviously down south and in and around Wembley. And being in a country that is hosting a major tournament where the whole country feels involved, they know they're going to kind of receive a boost in tourism, travel, and economic boost as well for the nation. And everybody you're in small towns in France, so like in between Nice and Marseille. Like I've done a trip and we rented a place in kind of wine country for super cheap, and we were in the middle of nowhere. And you go into the small town and you sit in the tobacco with your tiny little beers at 2:00 in the afternoon, and you stay there for the whole day, just enjoying the football, and different people are coming by. And when you split it up, I think Mexico's only got the Azteca for that World Cup with the United States and Canada. And to be honest, people are referring it to the World Cup in the United States. They're not really saying Canada, and nobody's really saying, oh, and it's in Mexico as well. It doesn't feel right. It feels too fragmented, too split up. So you lose that sense of occasion, not just for the host nation, but I think for the supporters being out there as well. I don't think it's right.
Is that not just a reflection though of the sport as a whole now? As in, more is more.
Nice.
As in, there's more tournaments, more games, more money, more stuff is sliced and diced, more, rather than something a bit smaller and centralized.
No, it's to do with money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because it costs these countries actually quite a lot, particularly when you think about the stadium renovations that need to take place for the executive suites, the boxes that are demanded by these bids to be a part of the bidding process. You have to provide a certain amount for Coca-Cola or Hisense or whoever executives are sponsoring that tournament to be able to go and sit in their Lux Deluxe seating around these stadiums. And I mean, you've been in Italy. We've both covered Serie A a lot. Think about the stadiums that you're looking at for hosting a major tournament. The San Siro has been dug from the inside out to try and incorporate new boxes at various different levels. Juventus have changed their stadium completely. But how many other grounds really do you think, oh, that'd be hosting a major game? Like the Dacia Arena for Udinese, maybe Atalanta's new ground as well that they're kind of finishing off right now. But a lot of them feel, and obviously the Olimpico in Rome, but a lot of them still feel very old, decrepit stadiums. You think about Latin America as well, South America, you think about Argentina. Like, there's no way, aside from the Bombonera, that, and maybe obviously the renovation with River Plate, but I don't see another stadium in Argentina that would be capable really of hosting World Cup venues with all the corporate facilities that come with it. Whereas if you spread it out, the kind of cost of renovating stadiums is split off between different nations, so it doesn't bankrupt you. Think about what Brazil had to go through hosting the Olympics and the World Cup, and there were talks that it was financially crippling the country to do that because it cost them so much money. So it's easier for nations to pally up and do this to then have the benefits of hosting a tournament, which is A, your side might do better because obviously they're the home nation, they've got the fans behind them, and B, you get the added tourism and an increase in influx in GDP coming into the country. So, yeah, it's brass tacks at the end of the day, isn't it? And life is made too difficult to host these competitions because hosting a competition isn't about the sport and the great stadia and the historic nature. It's about, but can we have a nice luxury seat for my boy Infantino to sit up in the top deck at?
Sorry, Ollie, let me just get the door quickly. I didn't enjoy that. I mean, quite a chaotic, not another sports pod debut with the brick delivery and lots of work in progress. As Hemingway once said, the first draft of everything is shit.
Yeah, and it's not our first podcast, Dave, but this is a new venture, so we will hit a nice reset button. Also, by the magic of the break, there's a slightly different camera angle if the video content ever goes out as well. So, it's a learning curve, all of this podcasting thing, and we're not even in what is soon to be the Wilson and Windsor Man Cave studio here at the new house, which is probably about 6 months away. So the kitchen backdrop's going to have to do for a bit longer, I think. But yeah, we'll get it sorted.
Ollie, I know you wanted to talk about holes in one and one hole in one specifically.
Well, I did quickly before we get off Euro 2024, though, Dave. Would you say we're only a few days into the competition so far? We're coming towards the first round of group games being done and dusted. Haven't really seen many underdog surprises coming through in the early part of the tournament so far. Some people would argue that's a bad thing. Some people would say it's better to see the big sides winning and winning pretty well. When you think about Spain, you think about the recovery Italy made, you think about, the French side is obviously going to be fantastic this year. You think the Germans put Scotland to the sword on the opening night, of course. I don't think that was unexpected, but the manner of their victory certainly was an eye-opener if they look like the strongest side that we've seen so far. I just wondered if you're tournament minnows pushing through like Morocco did at the World Cup and that was a great story, or if you'd rather see the big boys kind of just kicking the door in early and saying, look, we're here for the European Championships and we're not going to let any of these up-and-comers stand in our way, so to speak.
Yeah, there was a bit of a meme going around on Twitter earlier, Ollie, about like Gary Neville and a couple of other pundits giving their dark horses for the tournament, and the dark horses were like Portugal or like, the Netherlands, not a dark horse. You know what this tournament's made me realise, and other tournaments recently? How on earth did Greece win Euro 2004? And will that go down as like, I mean, at the time it was, wow, this is insane. Like the odds, how did they do it? Loads of 1-0s and set pieces and stuff like that. But when are we going to see that again? Like, when are we going to see a Serbia or a Wales win like a World Cup or Euros? I mean, it doesn't even look likely in the far, 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 far horizon. And it's not like clubs where, a Wrexham can get bought by multi-millionaires, right? It's not like where, it's not inconceivable that Wrexham could win a massive trophy one day with the right backing, or any club with the right backing. But with national sides, it's different because it's a certain, talent pool that can't really be artificially inflated. So when are we going to see Greece happen again?
Well, the fact that we were so surprised by Greece doing it, I mean, I think it goes overlooked how shocked people were that Greece won that competition. Even going into the final, it was like, oh, Portugal will do this. Nobody had Greece getting there. In the same way, probably nobody had Morocco getting to the World Cup semi-finals. And if Morocco got to the World Cup final, no one would have backed them at all. So Greece is like the outlier. It's like the Leicester City Premier League win, right? We genuinely witnessed a moment of sporting greatness by a side that nobody ever backed. And I think it does get overlooked of previous winners because, again, that it's not like that Greece side was... Name me a player from the starting 11 of the Euro 2004 final for Greece.
Angelos Mavropaniakis, or, no, I don't remember. I just remember, all I remember, I mean, it was 20 years ago, in fairness to me, in fairness to us right now, but it was just a series of 1-0 victories, wasn't it?
It was pretty poor football. It wasn't a great side to watch or anything like that, and everybody kind of got tired of the monotonous style of play. And is this really going to be... But that's tournament football as well. That's the great thing about tournament football, is that you can just go through 1-0 wins, grinding it out. I mean, they touched on Portugal's European Championship win, 3 tournaments ago now. And so a reminder that Portugal didn't win a game through the knockout stages. It was grinding out and penalty shootouts, and won in extra time. They didn't win a game in the 90 minutes, I think it was, of the whole tournament, aside from maybe their first game in the group. Maybe they even lost that. But yeah, so it was, you don't have to be special to get through this. And a lot of these smaller nations now try to play that easy on the eye football that everybody loves. We want to play attacking football. We want to do this. We want to do that. And if you actually look back at Greece, your best chance being a lesser nation, and no discredit to those nations that are on the periphery of being considered actual contenders, your best chance is to be ugly. Is to be what Serbia did last night. Sit in, try and hold off, and then try and snatch one or two. I mean, Serbia's got some decent players in that, but I mean, Vlahovic and Mitrovic is actually a really good front too, and they've got a good supporting cast in behind them. But their best chance of grinding through games against the likes of England is to play that kind of football. And in a knockout stage of a competition, that result could have been a different result last night against England, and that could have been England out at a quarter-final stage quite easily against Serbia. So I think there is still a path. I just think these teams maybe need to ditch the idea of, we're Slovenia and we can play that easy on the eye football. It's like, nah, be what Roy Keane was talking about after the Scotland game. Be physical and aggressive, fairly, but be physical and aggressive and really rattle these bigger nations. And that's the way that you've got a chance to get through.
Sorry, Ollie, go.
No, just on what you said about, you can't buy players or anything like that in international football, obviously. Is it the purest form of footballing competition now?
It is, and it will increasingly be so. As clubs, as has happened over the last couple of decades, really, I think as clubs get bought by billionaires, nation states, and you really can, in some ways, it creates a very odd egalitarian society where you could, technically, any billionaire, any nation state could buy a football club, pump money into it, as long as you stick by financial fair play and, catapult them up the pyramids. But yeah, I actually think international football might see a bit of a renaissance over the next, generation, because I do think at its core it's its most purest. And I think that the domination of big leagues, the Premier League, club football, has kind of seen international football nudged to the side a little bit, I would say, by fans of club football over recent years. But I think you might see a big renaissance, yeah. Just while it's in my head, or not in my head, it's on, I just looked it up, Ollie. I don't remember his name, but I do remember his face. And it was Angelos Charisteas, I think it was. And I remember his face. This is 20 years ago, so it was a long time ago. It was, But yeah, there he was. He was the man that scored the winner in the final against Portugal in 2004. So there we go. Ollie, I said to you on WhatsApp, and I haven't called the bookies about this yet. What odds would you give me on England's men's team not winning a major trophy by 2066, thus marking 100 years of its not coming home failure? There's a lot of tournaments still there to be played between now and 2066.
You miserable man. How dare you try and bring down the nation is buoyed after 35 minutes of effervescent football last night and 3 points in the bag in what will go down as a more difficult group opener that this England national team has ever faced. Southgate is in his final tournament leading the nation for the last time. We've got the greatest centre forward in the world. We've got one of the best number 10s the planet will ever see in Jude Bellingham, who's only going to get better and better and better and lead this England side onto greatness, not just at this tournament, but across the Atlantic to the United States, to Canada and Mexico, and finally lifting that World Cup once again for the first time since 1966. How dare you come onto this podcast, first time out, and start asking for the odds of 100 years of pain? About 15 to 1, I reckon. 15 to 1, probably. It's not inconceivable. 100%. You look at Spain, and this is a side that 4 years ago people were saying is developing, and already a fantastic result against Croatia. You never count out the Italians. The Germans have this conveyor belt, and they've got some great youngsters coming through the ranks as well into this national team side. So for the next 20 years, you're looking at least the European level, some very difficult sides to try and knock off. Even if you are the best, you have to be great at tournament football and have that winning mentality. And then on the World Cup stage, are you ever going to back against the Brazilians and their conveyor belt? The likes of Endrick coming through, Estevao as well, of course, who are going to start making their names in European football soon. The Argentinians, it may not be pretty, but there will be a legacy after Lionel Messi. And of course, Argentina is so proud of itself as a footballing nation. It's hard to think that they're not still going to be competitive in 20 years' time at a World Cup level. I think putting tournament odds on teams is easier. It's easier to back a side to not win a lot. And so 15 to 1 to not win a single thing after the generations we've had.
Ollie is stingy. We've got another 40 years or something to play with, right? And there's, I think it's stingy. But what I would say is I will ring Paddy Power, because they're more like a novelty bet specialist, right? And I reckon that Paddy Power will give me odds of 100 to 1.
You think?
on England not winning a men's international tournament by 2066. And that being, because it's gimmicky, 100 years, 100 to 1. I reckon max bet, £100. I reckon Paddy Power will give me that bet. I'm gonna give him a call later on today, Ollie.
Okay.
And we'll pick it up on Not Another Sports Pod.
I reckon they'll give you 66 to 1. If you're going for the, unique numbers to fit in with the bet, if they give you 66 to 1 with a max bet of £100, that means you stick a hundy on it at 66 to 1.
It's a slow play, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll probably be dead by the time I get to cash it in. And, inflation would have rendered that money almost useless, and we'll be trading in AI memes and crypto and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can pass that betting slip down to your kids, though, as when you pass. It'll be a beautiful thing to watch that slip just be passed through the generations, one day hoping to cash out.
It's win-win, right? Like England win a men's tournament and everyone's happy. But, if I get 66 to 1, £6,600, win. So there we go.
Robo, Badil and Skinner brought back by AI, recreating 3 lines on a shirt for the 100 years of pain. Yeah. I mean, that will be happening for sure. Absolutely, for sure. Let's get on to the hole-in-one debate that you chirped up with this week. What's harder to make, a hole-in-one or a 147 break in snooker? And I think I know your answer.
Well, my answer is it's a 147 break because, as I said to you on WhatsApp, any amateur, anyone who can swing a golf club at some kind of level has a chance of making a hole-in-one, right? Anyone that can physically hit a golf ball that far has a chance of making a hole-in-one, but an amateur can't make a 147 break, Ollie.
No, that's definitely true, but I will also say that you think about how many frames of snooker take place in a snooker game and how many players are playing those games. And is it every tournament at least there is a 147 break? The average number of 147 breaks during a snooker match, let alone a snooker tournament. Think how many, you've got 110 players at some of these golf tournaments. You've got 4 rounds of golf consisting of 18 tee shots. Okay, maybe 4, 5 at most par 3s in a round. So you've got 400 attempts a day over 4 days. So you've got about 1,600 attempts a day at making a hole-in-one from professional golfers alone. And the rarity of a hole-in-one in a professional golfing competition, it doesn't happen every tournament. It doesn't happen every 2 or every 3 tournaments. So
let me give you some maths, Ollie, because I really rated you in an analog millennial way, trying to work it all out in your head. Let me just tell you this. As of 2024, there have been over 180 officially recognized 147 breaks in professional snooker tournaments since the first one was recorded in 1982. In terms of a hole-in-one in golf, hole-in-one are more common than 147 breaks. The odds of an average golfer making a hole-in-one is roughly 12,500 to 1, while for a professional golfer, it's 2,500 to 1. So, yeah.
I mean, it is probably more impressive. Well, I think it's more impressive in that a snooker 147 break, you have to you can't be lucky. You can be a bit lucky. You could maybe rattle the jaws of the pocket or something like that, but you can't be lucky consistently over a 147 break. Like, it's not possible. I keep wanting to say 1471 for the return caller number that you used to have on your old phone when it was actually like glued to the kitchen table or whatever, and you need to find out who was the last person that rang you.
We've lost our Zoomer audience on Pod 1, by the way, with some of our references.
Do you not answer the phone like this? Oh, it's like this, isn't it? Now, yeah.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, people
That's
don't
a visual
know what
for those listening in audio only. Ollie's picked up his phone in the old what's that?
Yeah, the thumb and little finger mobile, the thumb and finger phone to your ear and mouth, and actually now it's a flat palm of the hand. Anyway, I digress.
It's like, sorry, just quickly, the coffee emoji on like WhatsApp and stuff is like a coffee with a saucer. And it's like, that's completely outdated, right? It should be like a takeaway, eco-friendly coffee. Anyway, carry on.
It should be a flat white. It should say flat white on it because that's what 100%. Everybody drinks now for extortionate prices, David. No, and so you can't be lucky during a 147 break. You can be lucky with a hole-in-one for sure. And there is a difference. I read a story, I was told a story this week about a friend of a friend who made a hole-in-one on a par 3 205 yards or something like that, hit a 4-iron. And they sculled the 4-iron. It was a bad hit. It thinned. It dribbled along the deck, rolled up to the hole and goes in. And he was so annoyed he didn't want to be credited with it because it wasn't like a pure hole-in-one. And that comes with getting a hole-in-one. I wouldn't want a hole-in-one if I ricocheted off a wall and it bounced across, which has almost happened to me before. I've hit like a farmer's wall on the side of the hole and then it's dribbled all the way across and like lipped out. I wouldn't want that hole-in-one. I'd like to hit a good, clean shot that spins back into the hole or something like that, or dunks in first time, because it would taint it. And I think there's a weird emotional roller coaster with hole-in-ones that you can go through in that, which you don't get in a 147. Somebody makes a 147, they're aiming to do that. That's what they've done. They've not done it accidentally. There is a guilt to a lucky hole-in-one, which in the moment you're probably elated, but afterwards it would ring true in the back of your head. If you're a proper golfer, it'd ring true in your head that I didn't really make a hole-in-one. I kind of lucked one out. It wasn't what I was aiming for, but I'll take it. So did you really make a hole-in-one if you didn't hit the right shot? I don't know. That's more one for the golf philosophers, really. But
that's very esoteric, yeah.
But incredible scene at the US Open this Friday with Molinari. He's playing the 9th, which is a par 3 at Torrey Pines number 2 course. It's his last hole of the day because he started on the 10th, because when they have such a big field, you have split tee times. So half of them start on the 1st, half of them start on the 10th and finish on 9 and 18. And Molinari needs a hole-in-one to make the cut. And if you don't make the cut on a Friday, you don't get paid for the weekend. And he steps up and sinks it, hole-in-one. And that to me, that is as pure a hole-in-one as you'll get. You need that just to get paid that weekend. And it's the last opportunity you have on the whole of the course to be able to do it. And you sink it. And that is your exact intention, is to get it in that cup. It was almost as good as the end of the golf. I know you're not a golfing man, but have you caught any of what happened last night? Rory McIlroy, on his 14-year major drought, misses in the last 3 holes 2 3-foot putts, which is like 100%. He hadn't missed a putt inside 3 foot all year long so far, and he misses 2 of them on the last 3 holes to lose by 1 shot to Bryson DeChambeau, who wins his 2nd US Open. It is sporting drama of the highest caliber, because Rory's going down the 18th and he puts his drive into the rough, and Torrey Pines this week has been like the roughest of the rough. There's sand, there's tufts of grass, there's roots your ball can get stuck behind. He's able to chip out, gets on, looking for a par putt that will likely take it at least to a playoff, and he misses another 3 foot. So one of those 3-foot putts is on the 18th green. He misses it. In the group behind, the final group, DeChambeau puts his drive way left as well. He has to chip out of the rough into a bunker, and everyone's saying, well, he might not get down in 3. I mean, Rory could still win this, let alone go to a playoff at this point. And DeChambeau hits this incredible shot from the bunker to like 5 foot and putts to win the US Open by a shot. And even if you're just a sports fan, edge of your seat stuff. And if you know any of the kind of story behind Rory and behind Bryson and the divide with Liv and the PGA, it was superb. And after a day of football, to then finish off with that until like 12:30 at night, getting to sleep was tough.